Changing minds one thought at a time.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Changing Minds Online Sunday Night Inspiration Call. How you doing, Akina?
I am great. How about you, Jessica?
I am doing awesome, and I am super excited about welcoming tonight's guest on the call. So, typically many of you who listen to our show on a regular basis know on our Sunday night calls it is usually just Akina and myself. And every once in a while we bring someone on who we just really are excited about, who have something amazing to share with you. And tonight I have the privilege of welcoming someone that we have thought was significant enough to bring on our show. So this person, it's actually someone that is very special to me. I've had the opportunity to mentor and coach with this person for the last 90 days, and it's just been a privilege to work with him. He's the creative director of Soul New York Cindy, which is a branding and marketing agency. He's a marketing expert. He recently appeared on All American Makers as their featured marketing and branding expert. And tonight he's going to talk with us about channeling your inner rock star and branding yourself to win. It's a privilege and honor to welcome Tommy Sparrow on the call. Welcome, Tommy.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. It's a privilege to have you. So, Tommy,
thanks.
a lot of people listening to our call tonight, they may not know what it means to brand yourself. Now, obviously, we know what a brand is, but this may be the first time someone's hearing the fact that they are actually a brand. So what does it mean to brand yourself?
Yeah, branding is a tricky thing because a lot of people always associate it with the visual. A lot of people think that a brand is a logo, which is really not the case. If you really went back in time to look at what the definition of a brand was or where the word originated from, it's what cattle farmers did to mark their cattle. So when they were out in the fields, they could differentiate it from the other farmers' cattle. So in terms of like modern branding, it's really how you differentiate yourself from other business people, from other executives, from other companies. And branding is a way to set yourself apart from everybody else.
Well, that's fantastic. So does everybody have a brand or just someone with a company?
Everybody can have a brand. I think, today, because of social media, all of us are really we're media outlets. We're all people creating content, and whether you realize it or not, ultimately there's a brand that becomes associated with it. So if you're the stay-at-home mom who's always posting funny pictures of her baby, doing silly things, you kind of become that person. People expect that from you. It really becomes part of your brand, whether you realize it or not. What you're putting out there ultimately gets associated with you.
So is it important to really create that brand powerfully?
Absolutely. I mean, especially if you're in a situation where you are, working to promote a business or promote yourself, whether you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur in other ways, having a distinct way to differentiate yourself is really, really valuable. And it actually is like you're kind of building equity in yourself when you work to build that brand.
That's fantastic. So, I'm sorry, Kenny, go ahead.
Now, when you're building a brand, what is usually your first step that you should take?
Sure. So, essentially what you have to figure out is who you are. Exactly, what kind of impression do you want people to have when they're doing business with you, whether you're an individual or a company. So you may have, the want for people to get the impression that you're casual and that your business is laid back or you're, really cool. Where on another perspective, you may want to be very crisp and very professional, and we're very, serious about what we do. It all depends on, like what business you're in or what type of business you're promoting, and B, like what really speaks to you as an individual. Like for me, I'm a musician. It's something that I've always been associated with my entire life. So for me to show up in a three-piece suit is not really going to fly. That's not really who I am. I'm the, T-shirt and a blazer and jeans guy. That's how I'll show up to a business meeting when appropriate. And people would expect that of me. So you have to kind of think about, what fits for who you are, like who you really are, and then what is going to speak to the people that you're trying to do business with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Tommy. I myself, too, I've definitely branded myself, and I am an athlete. And, I know often we've joked about the fact that I'll show up places in my running clothes and with my running headband. But that's really how I want people to see me. Yeah, right?
Yes,
I
think actually
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
No, we could actually call that a head brand, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you wear it so well.
Thank you, Tommy. For those of you who don't know me in person, know that, most days, of course, sometimes if you see me on pictures of Facebook when I'm out at events and in my dress, but most days I'm, sporting Lululemon with one of my famous headbands. So that's typically my brand. A lot of times people, and Tommy, tell me if this is your experience, people are sending confusing messages. Oftentimes I will be working with people who are in the field of motivational speaking or who are network marketers and trying to promote the idea that they can create their life, but they're posting negative things on Facebook. Or maybe they're posting really fantastic positive things on Facebook, but it doesn't actually match the personality. And there can be a lot of confusion and sending a lot of mixed messages about who you are and what you stand for. I'm a firm believer in being authentic, both on Facebook and also in life, but also really taking powerfully and choosing what image you want to project to people. Because especially with social media, and I'm glad you brought that up, every time you post something on Facebook, you're creating your brand, whether you realize it or not. So if you're waking up and just saying, oh, it's Monday and then, this is terrible, the week is starting over, and this is the brand and this is the image you're projecting about yourself. So how can we really just give some tips to our listeners about how to be authentic and be true to themselves while actually, we talked about tonight, really channeling that inner rock star and branding themselves to win, branding themselves powerfully. So how do they achieve both, being true but making sure they're setting themselves up for success?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I always preach to anyone who is concerned about how their brand is perceived, whether it be in the marketplace or whether it's on social media, is consistency. Being consistent through and through is like the number one thing you can do to convey authenticity. So as you said, if one day I'm posting these powerful quotes and the next day I'm complaining that I got cut off when I was driving to the office, or, oh, it's raining outside, it's going to be such a crappy day, you're kind of out of integrity. You know what I mean? So being consistent with your message, whatever that message might be. So if you're like the dark, snarky comedian person, then great, then be that, because people will come to expect it, and that's fine. But if you're this empowering and someone who's talking about gratitude all the time, you have to stay consistent in that, because people will sniff you out in a second once they know that you're really not that. And it's so easy to find out. Everything we do is documented, right? Every post, every tweet, every blog, every email ultimately is stored somewhere. So, people remember that stuff, and it's really hard to recover. I think that's why you see, these things that happen online where someone who's got this high-level executive position sends out some odd tweet that is just out of alignment either with themselves or with who they work for, and it just becomes this whole public relations disaster, and it's really hard to recover from that stuff. So for me, consistency, absolute number one way to show authenticity, whether online or off.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, when you're consulting with someone on their branding, where do they usually start having issues in this area? What do you tell them when you see these when you're in a counseling session?
As far as the consistency?
Correct.
Or inconsistency? Yeah, usually, it shows up a lot of times in the visuals. So, for example, I've consulted and worked with, everything from Fortune 500 companies and, major label recording artists like Beyonce and John Legend down to local small businesses. And what I see as a common thread when it falls apart is when there's a lack of consistency, especially in your visual stuff. So, small businesses usually suffer from this because they typically don't have the budget to maybe hire a graphic designer or hire a professional firm to handle the stuff they put out. So one day they're laying out their logo in one font, and then the next week it's something else. And one week things are blue, and the next week they're green or purple. That's usually where you see inconsistency. And it's just because they're just not paying attention to it. And I think a lot of, in defense of small businesses, they're really just working to get their stuff out there, and they're hustling and all of that. So they may not be paying attention to the details, but ultimately that will come back and bite you because, it's just like people just don't know who you are. There's no identity. So you wind up just like watering down your message when there's a lack of consistency that you're putting out there.
That's some really great advice. We do at Changing Minds Online, and a lot of us, and Akina is really the one to thank for this because she's phenomenal also at branding. But we put our logo on everything. If you guys look at our daily affirmation cards, on our emails, on our app, everything is really the same. On our books, we put our logo on everything. And I think it is very important to be sending that signal. One of the things that I know is that a lot of times when people will ask me to be on their show or they're coming up with us, and we'll Google them, or and we do Google everyone who we bring on our show and make sure that everything comes up positive about them. So and that's another thing to really think about is just, whatever you're putting out, it is public and people are actually looking at it. Before we welcome anyone on our show, we certainly look to see what their kind of footprints are on the internet.
Yep.
But if people can't find you, if it's inconsistent, we've seen people who have really like powerful, fantastic logos, and then we looked at their website and it's like hot pink and looks like a Barbie threw up on it, and it's not consistent with their brand, and it kind of turns people away. But I think that's really I think you bring up a really great example with that, and also really just being careful what is out there. And, I can give an example where somebody wanted to be on my show, and I was speaking in our show, and Akina and I were speaking to them, and it was actually my choice where I made the call where this person had let a lot of like motivational content on their professional website, but when I found their Facebook pages, they were using vulgar language, and they were really inconsistent on their personal profile for what their business stood for. And I made a choice and said, look, like, there's no way we can bring this person on our show. Like, I love her expertise, and she's very successful, and I know she has a great message, but she also has this other side that it's not matching up. And I think I don't want, anyone who's listening here, especially new entrepreneurs, and a lot of young entrepreneurs tend to get into this situation, especially entrepreneurs are in college. You want to post things when you're out with your friends, and you really just have to be very, very careful about what you're putting online. And I wish I knew that. There's things that I probably wouldn't have posted from a few years ago before I became an entrepreneur that, are there, and there's not much I can do about it now. And go back and clean up what you can, but it is permanent,
Yeah. Yeah, and it winds up leaving, people with this experience of uncertainty, when things aren't consistent. So, consistency obviously is, as you said, it's in what you say, it's in what you do, it's in, what you look like, and that could be your brand and your logos and all your visual things. But it's really all of those things. It's the whole experience of a brand or a person or a business. So, if you think about a McDonald's, their brand is when you walk into the restaurant. And if a place is kind of dirty because that particular manager isn't, keeping it up, that really affects the brand as a whole, So there's so many levels that it comes down to. It's, you showing up in a wrinkled shirt to an interview, a job interview, as opposed to saying, maybe I need to hit the cleaners before tomorrow. So it's just like all of that stuff, it all plays into like this idea of branding. And it's not just for big businesses. It's not just for rock stars, which is sort of, I throw that in there because there's this aura around rock stars that people want to, be around them. They want to be like them. They want to, just kind of be part of that experience. And, in terms of how I look at it, being a rock star is really, it's how you show up in life. It's how your business takes care of its customers. It's how, you treat somebody when you're making a sale or when you're following up. It's all of those things. You could be a rock star garbage man if you wanted to. It's not so much about what really a rock star means. It's like the essence of being like really driven and working towards excellence at all times and really loving what you do, and just like really bringing the best of yourself to a situation. That's what I'm getting at when I'm talking about someone branding themselves like a rock star.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what can someone do if they're in that situation where I just talked about, where they need to kind of do aftermath? Maybe they're listening to this call and they're saying, wow, you know what, like, this is not really what I've been doing. How can they make steps to start branding themselves like a rock star, and also take steps to clean up what wasn't the image they were trying to leave?
Mhm. Well, the cleanup, in the digital realm, could be challenging. So it really depends on what channels they were on or where the sort of bad stuff is living. But for example, let's say you had a Twitter account where you were like spewing, nasty stuff. I would probably just say delete the account and start with a fresh one. The thing is, if you've kind of gone down this path where people have a not so great experience of you or your business, it takes a while to build that trust back. So I would say, tomorrow's a new day. You could start fresh tomorrow and just try to start building new good vibes out there, whatever they might be. It's a matter of, starting over. Wipe the slate clean and just give it another go. Moving forward, thinking about that consistency, what wasn't working before and what will work moving forward is sort of staying consistent in message and in voice and in tone and all of those things that people will be in contact with as they are either working with you or working with your company.
Akina, I know that this is all fantastic news. For people that are doing things like we're doing, and because you really are the one for doing the majority of branding for our company as far as posts, can you give women some advice, or anyone listening to the call, some advice on, what resources you're using? I know we do a lot of things like post planning and different organizational tools to help us in figuring out like what we're going to do. So, you're not, and this is, again, a lot of people may say, well, the consistency, I can't be consistent because my schedule's crazy. If you're organized and you spend an hour a week doing your social media planning, it becomes much easier. So, Kina, can you point people to the resources that we're using?
Well, of course, I know that as far as graphic designs, I use Canva, and I also use WordSwag. Both of those are very helpful for what we're doing. Also, I use the scheduler in Facebook when I'm doing Facebook, or we also have a buffer account for Facebook, Twitter, and of course Instagram and Pinterest. I also have ifthenthenThat.com. I use that to link the Facebooks and the Twitters so that whenever I post anything on Instagram, the pictures actually show up in the post instead of a link. So that's definitely been helpful for when the people are using our affirmations of the day. They can actually see the picture automatically instead of just having to click on the link and wondering what it was. So that has definitely helped in the engagement. What types do you use, Tommy?
What tools do I use? Yeah, I'm pretty hands-on. I mean, my background, I started, in this industry as a graphic designer. So typically, I'm doing most of my design work myself for the things that I'm putting out there. It just happens to be something I enjoy doing. When I'm working with clients, that's not always the case. I do have some resources that I work with, usually some freelance designers and things like that. And then with tweeting and Facebook and all of that, believe it or not, usually I am tweeting live in most situations. I'm not one to do a lot of, buffering of tweets. At this point, with the amount that I'm doing it, it's manageable for me. And usually when I'm tweeting, it's either that I'm in an event or if the TV show is on, I'll be live tweeting during it. So I tend to be a little bit more hands-on, but I do use TweetDeck in order to manage, chats and things that I'm following. I have some experience with Buffer. Buffer is a great tool for that. We've also been using, what is the other one? I can't think of the name right now, but it allows us to, channels at once. And, any of those tools, if you're accustomed to wanting to get things lined up at the beginning of the week, by all means, automation is fine. But there's also that experience of, making sure that you're responding to things, so the automatic stuff is great, but I always hate when I see, the same tweet go out 5-6 times a day. That always, tends to bother me, or it looks very canned or repetitive. That stuff I don't really like.
Yeah, I agree. I know there's a place, I think, for and Akeen and I, we do also a combination of both. There is a place, I think, for planned posts. You do have to be careful what you're planning, and, one of those things, too, where you also want to go back and check your content. I'll always be aware. I start every day with making sure I'm aware and just reminding myself of what's posting. Because if something happens, let's say there's some sort of tragedy where, God forbid, something bad happens in the world, and all of a sudden you're posting 10 minutes later, hey, it's going to be a wonderful day today, like, what a great day to be alive. Yeah. Well, that's probably not the signal you want to send. So you do want to be aware of what you're posting, and definitely, people do want those live posts as well. We tend to do more posting with automation on our business end when it comes to, sharing our podcast, things we're going to be doing anyway, where we have our affirmations of the day. We're not always posting those every day in the morning. Sometimes they're planned, or they're always planned in advance. But, when I'm running and when I'm doing things on my personal profile, you're not really going to see a lot of automation. So there is, like you said, a place for it. But you also do, and that is part of your brand, is when you're doing things live, you want to share what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that the stuff that is more marketing focused, where your show is on twice a week, so there's nothing wrong with you planning out all of your posts and making sure it goes out at appropriate times. All that stuff is totally cool, and people will get that. So it's really just a matter of what's comfortable, what works for you, and what works for your business and your audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So tell me, we know that you're doing a lot of different products and projects right now. Can you tell us about some of those?
Sure. Probably the most interesting thing that's happened in the last, in the last year was getting a random call last summer to appear on a reality show that was being shot in Brooklyn. And I was a little skeptical at first, obviously. Someone called and said, can you be on set on Sunday to shoot this TV show? So, I asked for some information. As it turns out, it was totally legit. And the show was going to be appearing on the Science Channel. Premise of the show, All American Makers, is that it gives inventors and makers an opportunity to pitch their ideas to two experts who have invented all sorts of cool stuff and one venture capitalist. And what differentiates the show from like a Shark Tank, if you will, is that the products actually get tested. So there are focus groups where people are, general public gets to, try the products out to see what it does. The two inventors on the show actually put these products through their paces to really see if they work. So really interesting to get to see that angle of product development or business idea development you don't necessarily see on television. And what my role is that I will come in once an episode, and usually it's towards the end when they've whittled down the pack of products to maybe one or two. I'll give my opinion about the product from either a marketing or branding standpoint, and they'll give me some, possibly some questions that they'll ask me about it. It was really fantastic experience for me because it was really the first time that I've appeared on anything like this, and it's one of those situations where you're thrown right in the frying pan, don't have a lot of time to prepare, and I'm really, forced to think on my feet, which I really enjoy. And it was great. I shot 4 episodes of season 1 last summer, and we just found out this week that the show is going to a season 2. And hopefully we'll be shooting again in the next couple of months. So I'll keep you guys posted as that develops. But, yeah, really exciting to be able to work on something like that.
It's phenomenal. Congratulations on your success with that. And then you also
Thanks.
have a blog that you're doing as well, right, that you just kind of got started, right?
Yeah, I've had the blog for a couple of years, but I, was kind of hot and cold with it. And then recently I committed to blogging every day or close to every day. And, you'll find everything on there from, marketing tips or a branding idea to a lot of, inspirational stuff. As, we met, Jess, we were part of a leadership program. So, I've been in the experience of having to coach people, and I've found I've just gotten a lot of joy out of sort of conveying messages in my way. So a lot of the blog will also be inspirational messages as well. And you can find that, which is my name. It's TommySpiro.com. And, I'm posting, pretty regularly at this point. You can subscribe there. I'd love to get some new folks on the list. That would be really, really cool. And I hope you guys check it out, and we welcome comments and all that stuff as well.
Yes, we definitely will, because we actually have it posted on our Facebook page right now. So if you're listening, just go to our Facebook page and click the link right there.
Great. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Tommy, we are about at that point of the show where we need to wind down for the evening. If you could wrap up, kind of give us a takeaway for our listeners tonight, what would that be?
Sure. So we didn't get to talk about it too much, but I wanted to just convey this idea of branding yourself like a rock star. For me, think about any concert that you've ever been at, and at the end, people are just screaming for more. They want an encore. They want the artist just to keep playing. And no matter how many times that artist might come out and play an extra song, there's still that desire to have more. And if you could think about how to position yourself, whether it's in business or at your job or your company, how do you get people to become fans? Think about what sort of message or what sort of way you can bring yourself to business situations where people just want to have more of that experience of you. That's really what I think is the biggest key to branding yourself, quote unquote, like a rock star, is turning people into fans of you so that they always want to be involved in what you're doing or to do business with you or be in conversation with you. That's really the key to that.
Well, that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Tommy, for being on our call tonight and sharing this with us.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so glad that you guys had me on, and I'm looking forward to coming back. I'm in the process of writing a book, so when the book is released, I hope you guys will have me back on.
Absolutely. It would be our pleasure. Akina, if anyone wants to find the recording of this, can you let them know where they can find the call if they want to share it with their friends or listen again?
Oh, most definitely. Of course, you can always find us on Change Your Minds Online in our archive section. You can also find us on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Podomatic.
That's awesome. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed the call tonight, and we just want to make it a really powerful week, and we can't wait to be back with you on a Thursday night call. I always end the calls the same way by telling you, we love you. We are thankful for you for listening in and just allowing us to kind of guide you on your journey. God bless, and just make it a powerful week. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Akina.
You're welcome. Good night.
Good night, everyone.